we're back with Frontier Opening Bell for Tuesday, the 16th of April. Welcome everyone to the show. I am Bosin Amafaye. This is how the market started off on Monday. The Egyptian stock market came back after roughly a week of the Eid al-Fitr holiday to stamp roughly 4% with a very big jump for the NGX-30, taking it to the doorsteps of 30,000. The banks in Nigeria continue to see sell-off across board. UBA, JITCO, FBN Holdings, Access Corp, Zenith Bank, Fidelity, Jaiz Bank, from tier 1 to tier 2 to tier 3 level. The banks are continue to be sold off on the market. The shares were down. The banking index was down roughly 4% on Monday to start the new week in the mid-level for the midpoint for the month of April. The banks have less than 15 days, effectively speaking, to submit to the central bank their recapitalization plan. So everyone is rushing right now to the exit door just to be ready for the recapitalization program that the central bank says became effective 1st of April. But of course, after all the proposals are looked into, we'll have a formal window of when the banks will complete the exercise. But of course, based on what we know, many of Nigerian banks will be going to both local and international markets with a hybrid offering on the market for investors and all that. So it's going to be a very interesting time. So the banks actually took the market straight down south on Monday to start the new week after the NGX fell roughly 2% last week. The BRVM started the new week positive 0.37%. The Nairobi market was down just about 5 basis points at 110.5, while the GSE fell 1.05%, led in the main by resources. The resources index fell about 3.3% on the GSE on Monday, as the rand fell to about 18.89 on the dollar, down about 0.75%. Those are the numbers. The Zimbabwe stock market also retraced lower below the 100 reading on the main index, down by about 0.8%. But let's take it to Eastern Central Africa. Take a look at the headlines. Kenya is unveiling a single online portal that would help the country further promote ease of doing business in East Africa's biggest economy. In the meantime, Kenya Airways is selling about roughly 50%, 49% of its equity to Delta Airways, while the Treasury in Nairobi says reverses itself and said they will continue to fund the operations of activities of Kenya Airways, which has been hobbled by huge debt. But that's looks like a new horizon. If you get Delta Airways in the room and again reduce government holdings, they could make Kenya Airways come back as that iconic company on the Nairobi Securities Exchange and a few exchanges within the region, by the way. Kenyan banks have raised their bad loans coverage by roughly 56 billion shillings because of higher level of default. And finally, in East Africa, the EEU and Huawei company said they have a deal together to give electricity to communities in off-grid areas of Ethiopia, part of restoring electricity to Ethiopia across various areas partly affected by the civil war in the Tigray region. Those are the headlines east of the continent. Let me just move on quickly to West Africa, where the news came overnight that Ghana has reached a tentative deal with international bondholders. They accepting 33% effective nominal haircut for their bonds, the government bonds that they hold. The IMF says progress has been made, but there's no full debt sustainability deal yet on the table with President Akufo-Addo's administration in Accra. That's the latest from Ghana. In the meantime, Nigerian breweries is looking to rationalize at least 2 of its brewing facilities in Nigeria. The company's raised retail price about wholesale prices 3 times this year, and continue to wobble under the yoke of full subsidy removal, as well as exchange rate. Nigerian currency went as roughly 2,000 to the dollar before it starts recovering now to about 1,140 at the official window. We'll hear more from Nigerian bureaus later in the week when he holds his pre-AGM press briefing later on Thursday. In the meantime, Nigeria's inflation at near 40-year high, 33.20%. Food inflation at 40%, a very crunching time for Nigeria, as the decline in the dollar rate against the naira yet to reflect in the price of goods and services. But again, you've got an economy with structural misalignment here. So you've got a whole lot more to deal with. The central bank's been containing exchange rate. Now it's got inflation specter on its hands. How will Cardoso and his team decide at the next monetary policy meeting next month is anyone's guess. A tightening of 600 basis points have been seen so far in the first quarter of this year. And of course, you've got Liberia's central bank says it's not attending the World Bank IMF spring meetings, which started yesterday in Washington, D.C. Let's keep that in the box. Let's move on to Southern Africa. The IMF managing director, Christina Georgieva, is positive that the deal being discussed between Zimbabwe today at a meeting which started on Monday, of course, has been productive with the creditors as well as other donors. The meeting is part of the continuing program of a meeting between Zimbabwean officials and those international financial institutions regarding the country's debt. The IMF chief, Georgieva, says the IMF is ready or stands ready to work with Zimbabwe to restore macroeconomic stability. Those are the words of President Georgieva speaking on our handle today. In the meantime, the ZiG, the new currency, is surging amid market skepticism. The stock market is moving one day in, one step out, as everyone tried to understand and digest how the new currency, the ZiG, works for financial asset pricing. Good news, Cape Town in South Africa is set for what you call the record cruise tourists. The city has the region has invested about 1.2 billion rand over the last 1 year to be ready for this surge coming through from tourists coming around the world via cruise ships into Cape Town, one of the iconic tourist destinations on the African continent. Meantime, Angola reporting inflation registering slight slowdown in the month of March. And the 4 Ways Mall in South Africa is asking shareholders to bring up about 300 million rand to the table. Zimbabwe is stockpiling $700 million worth of ivory because of the ban on ivory trade. Those are your headlines. Southern part of the continent. What else do we have? Of course, we've got a couple of earnings and numbers out of news out of Southern Africa, with Fidelity Asset Management floating a new real estate investment fund looking to raise about $70 million on the market to build medical and hospitality facilities, real estate facilities around Victoria Falls and other areas in Zimbabwe. By the way, some good news there for the Fidelity Asset Management on the market. Zimbabwe is also in the news. Let's take it to North Africa, where yesterday we've got the Vice President, the African Bank and Managing Director of the Intra-Africa Trade Fair, Kana Yawani, with the Prime Minister of Algeria, His Excellency Labero, Nigeria's former president, who is also the grand patron of the IETF, Olusegun Obasanjo, as well as the representative of the African Union and the EFCFTA chief, Wamkele Mene, putting pen to paper, observing the signing ceremony that will make Algeria the official host of the 2025 edition of the Intra-Africa Trade Fair. From Egypt to Algeria, Algeria becomes the second North African country to host this biannual event. It's the 4th time. So it's going to be held 3 times now in North Africa and once in South Africa. That was in 2023, 2021 in Durban. Okay, so Egypt Central Bank floating 6 tenders for T-bills and T-bonds worth roughly 120 billion pounds, while gold prices surging in the North African country because of the Middle East crisis just next door. And Morocco is launching tender for that high-speed Kentra-Marrakesh rail line. That is one iconic project to promote infrastructure, trade, tourism within the Moroccan economy, while the customs in Morocco reporting revenue upside exceeding 20 billion Moroccan dinars in the first, or dirhams in the first quarter of the year. Those numbers came in over the weekend. And those are your headlines to start your Tuesday. The second trading day of the week is the 16th day of April. Keep an eye on all the big stories we're covering for you today. Seplat Energy, Nigeria's indigenous oil and gas company listed on both Lagos and London stock exchanges, is officially marking its 10th anniversary on the Nigerian exchange group. We'll report that for you tomorrow and hear where the company is rising will be over the next 10 years, now marking its first decade as a listed company. Those are your headlines. Have a good day, everyone. Bye for now.